In this session, we are going to understand what are the OBYC settings, that is the OBYC configuration, which needs to be performed by an FI consultant, and how does that works. But prior to going to the OBYC, what we need to understand is valuation areas again. Now, valuation areas, as we discussed in our earlier classes, it is related to plant. So, if the prices of raw materials are same across all the plants, okay, then company code is taken as the valuation area. But if the prices of raw materials are different across all the plants, which happens in 99% of the cases, that the prices of raw materials are different across all the plants, then plant is taken as the valuation area. So plant is a valuation area. Now let's say there is a company and there are 10 plants. Okay, for one plant you have 50 GLs and you have the similar kind of raw materials being used across the plants. So will it be feasible, just think, will it be feasible to create those 50 GLs separately for all the plants, 50 GLs for one plant and the same 50 GLs for the second plant and for the third plant? It doesn't make sense basically. So to avoid this, what we do is we group together the valuation areas under a single roof, which is called as the valuation grouping code or valuation modifier. Okay, so you group together all the plants because the raw material is of same kind across the plants, so we are grouping together all the plants, and that is called as grouping together of valuation areas, because plant is a valuation area in itself. So we are grouping together all the plants under a single roof, which is called as a valuation grouping code or a valuation modifier. Okay, valuation grouping code and valuation modifier and one and the same thing. So let's just directly jump onto SAP and see how these are grouped. It is, the T code is OMWD. Okay, so now I am into SAP and I will go to SPRO. Now I will put on the T code OMWD. Okay, I went to OMWD and you can see the valuation area is over here. Let me go to position and select my valuation area, that is ABB2. I have selected my valuation area because I have a single valuation area, so or a single plant, I can say. There is no need to group together all the plants. If there would have been multiple, then we could have grouped together and it comes under the single valuation grouping code. So it is none other, it is nothing different. We are grouping together all the plants and under a single roof, which is called as a valuation grouping code. Here we will rename the same thing. We will name it as ABB2 itself. Okay, because we have a single plant and we will save this. So we have grouped together all the plants. Okay, now all the plants are under a single roof. Besides this, what happens is we also have the valuation class. Now what is this valuation class basically? Now let's say there are different kinds of raw materials. Okay, let's say you manufacture a shirt. Okay, you manufacture a shirt. So when you manufacture shirts or you manufacture any kind of textile product, so there are different kinds of raw materials. There are different colors of raw materials. So how you will be able to classify those raw materials? You need to classify it and then assign the GL accounts to any particular raw material, isn't it? So let's say a shirt is red in color, so it will have a separate GL account. A shirt which is white in color, it will have a separate GL account. So you are trying to group together on the basis of certain characteristics, which is called as a valuation class. Let's say on the basis of color, so that is a valuation class in itself. So you need to define the valuation class of that particular raw material. Okay, so to define the valuation class, the T code is OMSK. Now I'll go to OMSK, we'll go to valuation class. Okay, now by default, the valuation class, what has been mentioned or what has been provided by SAP is 3000. So you go to 3000 valuation class, the 0001 is the A reference. Okay, so in our case, we have two types of raw materials, raw material standard and raw material moving average. So what we will do, we will just take this, copy this, and okay, and we'll rename this. So I will rename this as R for raw material standard. I will rename this as R, let's say ST. Okay, raw material standard, and we'll change the description to raw material standard valuation class. Okay, so I have provided a valuation class to this raw material. I will copy this. So this is copied. I will again select this. Now raw material standard, I will select it. I have another valuation class, and that is raw material moving average. So for moving average raw material also, I have selected one more valuation class. Okay, and I will change the description as well over here. Raw materials moving average. Fine, and we'll click on copy. So we have created two valuation classes, raw material standard and raw material moving average, and we'll click on save. Okay, although we are just dealing with FI-MM integration, but if you want to also, you can also create a valuation class of finished goods if you want. So you can directly go to position and you have the valuation class 7920 for finished goods. Okay, so you can see 79200009 A reference. This is for finished goods. So if you want, you can also create the valuation class for finished goods as well. Although finished goods comes into the SD part, okay, that is sales and distribution part. But if you want, you can create it. For now, we are not creating it, okay, and I will go back. Okay, so now let's go back to the presentation. We group together the valuation areas under a single roof called as valuation modifier or a valuation grouping code, and we also created the valuation class of our raw materials. What is next? Next is movement of raw materials or goods through movement types. So basically in SAP, what happens is there are defined movement types. Movement types in the sense that you have defined certain numbers against a movement type. So just think how SAP will be able to recognize that goods or a raw material has been brought in against a purchase order. A material receipt is there against a purchase order. How SAP will be able to recognize? Then when it has been received, then it has been put to consumption, it has been sent to some cost center. There is again a movement of the raw material, okay, from storage location to cost center for consumption. Then it has been it is developed into a finished goods, it is delivered. Each and every point in time, whenever there is a movement of raw material, how SAP will be able to recognize? For that, SAP has given different kinds of movement types. You can see 101. Whenever a materials receipt against a purchase order, you have 101. Reversal of 101 is 102. Then when it is issued to cost center for consumption, you have 201. Issued to internal order, you use 261. In the similar manner, for 521, 522, you can see when uh, sorry, this needs to be corrected. This material receipt, but this is not against the purchase order 521. Okay, and then you have 601 delivery of finished goods, 602 reversal of 601. So this is how there are different kinds of movement types which are already defined by SAP. Now these are the movement types. Besides this, the next thing is OBYC settings, which is quite important. You are now aware of the movement types, that whenever a material comes in or whenever a material moves from one place to another, then a movement type number is associated with it. There is a movement type. Okay. And from FI perspective, from in OBYC settings, which an FI consultant performs, you have the account keys. Now, what are these account keys? There are different account keys which are associated with GL accounts. Okay. Now you can see main accounts keys BSX, WRX, PRD, GBB. Besides this, there are other account keys as well. Besides this, there are other account keys as well. Now you can see BSX is related to inventory postings. Okay. Inventory postings means raw material. Fine. Any movement of raw material associated with BSX. What is WRX? WRX is related to GRIR clearing. GRIR clearing, that means whenever the goods receipt is there, the entry is raw material account debited to GRIR clearing. So you will use the account keys GRX, WRX. If any difference is there at the purchase order level, between the price at the purchase order level and at the goods receipt level, or any difference between the difference at the purchase order level and at the invoice receipt level, there is a difference in price, then that account key is PRD. So against PRD will associate a GL. In the similar manner, any offsetting entry against the inventory postings, let's say the inventory is came in, but once the inventory is consumed, it will go through the account key VVR, raw material consumption. If the inventory is scrapped, it will go through the account key scrapping. So every movement of the raw material is also associated with an account key which is associated with the GL account. So we need to configure this OBYC settings. The T code in itself is OBYC, wherein you need to configure the GL accounts against these account keys. Okay. So what happens basically? You saw the movement type in FI-MM integration. So the movement type, which we saw earlier, the movement type basically triggers the valuation class. The valuation class triggers the account keys, which is then associated with the GL accounts, which helps in the automatic account determination. So OBYC settings are used for automatic account determination. The movement type triggers the valuation class of the raw material, which in turn triggers the account keys, which are associated with the GL accounts, and the postings happen. So this is the flow of OBYC settings. Okay, OBYC configuration. So let's just directly jump onto SAP and try to perform this OBYC settings. Okay, so now the T code is OBYC, and I will go to OBYC. Okay, and what we will do, we will just go and select the account key, the very first account key which I told you, which I said it's the BSX. BSX is inventory posting. So very first we will choose BSX. Okay, so where is BSX? Let's scroll down. This is for inventory postings. I will double click onto it and I will enter my chart of accounts. Now, what is my chart of accounts? My chart of accounts is ABB. Okay. I have selected my chart of account, and once I have selected my chart of accounts, I need to click on valuation modifier and valuation class. Now, what is valuation modifier? As I told, we have grouped together all the plants under a single roof. That is called as a valuation modifier or a valuation grouping code. And valuation class, we just created two valuation class. Just like on the basis of colors, you can create it. So we just created two valuation class for raw material standard and raw material moving average. And once I do this, I will click on save. As soon as I click on save, I have the option now to enter the valuation modifier. Now, what was our valuation modifier? It is the valuation grouping code. We group together all the plants. In our case, it is ABB2. Okay, I will just go and select it. If not, then what I will do, I will just enter it. ABB2 is my valuation modifier. What is my valuation class? There are two valuation classes I created: raw material standard and raw material moving average. Okay, so I will select my valuation class. Okay, it is RST. One was RST. Here it is. Okay, so I have selected my valuation class. Okay, just I will just write it over here, RST. And what is the account associated with RST, raw material standard? It is the GL account of the raw material. Okay, raw material standard. We created two GL accounts: raw material standard and raw material moving average. Okay, where are two, we have two kinds of raw materials. So both those GL accounts will be getting associated. So with the valuation class of raw material standard, you will associate the GL account of raw material standard. Okay, so I will go and check what was my GL account for raw material standard. Okay, okay, and I will go, let me just scroll down. Here it is 200122. Okay, this is my GL account 200122. In the similar manner, I have another valuation class also, which for which inventory postings can be done, and that was raw materials moving average, and the GL is 200123. Fine. So I have done it. Now what I have done, against the BSX inventory posting account key, I have, against the BSX inventory posting account key and against the valuation class of raw material standard and raw material moving average, I have assigned the respective GLs. I will just save it. So the BSX is done. Now I will go back. The next account key which I need to select is WRX. What is this? WRX means against the GRIR clearing. We also need to maintain the accounts of GRIR clearing. Okay, so that will also be against the inventory. Now, when the GRIR will come into picture, it will come into picture only if you receive the raw materials before the invoice is received. So, if the invoice is if the goods are received prior to the invoice, the entry is raw materials account debited to GRIR clearing account. Correct. So, we will go to WRX and we will click on valuation modifier and valuation class. Click on save. And then what is our valuation modifier? It is ABB2 valuation class. We just selected it, RST. Okay. And you will need to enter the GRIR clearing account, which is a liability account. And always remember, this liability account is an open item management account. If open item management has not been clicked, it will not work because it's a reconciliation account. So you need to click on open item management also. Okay. Now I will go and check what is my GRIR clearing account. Okay. Let me just check it once again. It's against company code ABB. I will give a check mark. And what is the GRIR clearing account? Let me just check it. Here it is. It is 100504. Fine. So I have maintained it against the valuation class of raw material standard. I also need to maintain it against raw material moving average. So that also I will do it. 100504. So I have maintained the GRIR clearing account against raw material standard and raw material moving average. Okay. Now what's next? The third account key, which is GBB. Now GBB is offsetting entry against the inventory postings. So we need to go and select the GBB. Now where is GBB? Just go and select it. GBB. Here is GBB. Once you go to GBB, now here you need to also select general modification, valuation modifier, and valuation class. Why is that so? I will just take you to the presentation and will show you. Now within GBB, there are different kinds of account keys. That's why you have also selected general modification so that you can arrive at these account keys also. Okay, so I have selected these three. We'll save this. Once I will save this, now I need to have the valuation modifier. That is the valuation grouping code or plant. General modification. Now here, let's say we are taking for raw material consumption. So for raw material consumption, it is VBR. Okay. And the valuation class is for raw material standard. Fine. And you just need to give the GL account of raw material consumption. So if you have not prepared the GL account of raw material consumption, you need to prepare it and you need to just assign it over here. Okay. So I will go and check what is the raw material, what is the GL for raw material consumption. Okay, and let's go and let's see where it is. RM consumption. It's an expense. Okay, and it might be over here. Okay, let me come down. Here it is 400,388. Okay, so I have taken that. In the similar manner, I will also assign uh, VBR account key for raw material consumption against raw material moving average as well. 400,388. Fine, and we'll save this. Great. So I have done that. Now what next? Okay. Now what next? Now what next is basically, if you see, we have done it against BSX, we have done against WRX, we did it against GBB raw material consumption. Besides this, you can see others also, like production receipt against purchase order, delivery where sales is a revenue element, delivery where sales is not a revenue element. Now this is production receipt. So basically this is all related to fixed assets. So we will not be using any of this right now. We are looking for FIMM integration. Hence I have used the raw material consumption general modification, that is BBR. Now there is another account key PRD. Now what is this PRD? PRD is price difference. Now when a price difference might arise, just think goods are received, but when the invoice is received, then there is a difference. Now how can there be a difference? Let's say you issued a purchase order for 100 quantities at the price of 10. You received the goods at the same price, but when the invoice was received later on, you saw that the vendor has billed you at 100 units at the rate of 12. So the goods were received at the rate of 10, but the vendor has billed you at the rate of 12. There is a difference of 2 rupees per unit. So where that difference will be settled, so that difference will go to the PRD account key. Okay, it will go to PRD. Now why it will go to PRD? Let us go to first of all and check this account key PRD. Here is the PRD account key, see cost price differences. I will go to this. I will select valuation modifier, valuation class, save it, and then I will just select for valuation modifier, that is my valuation grouping code. Then you select the valuation class for raw material standard, and you need to assign the account key for price difference. We created the GL for price difference earlier. Okay, we will just go and check what is our GL for price difference. Here it is 400,386. I will check mark on this. Now just think, I have assigned it to raw material standard. Should I also assign the price difference account key to raw material moving average or not? Now the thing is, what I said is that, whenever there is a standard price and moving average price, in our earlier class we discussed, standard price is the price which always remains standard. Okay, you do not change the price throughout the month, and you just calculate the variances at the end of the month. So if the price has been treated at that the price per unit is 10, then it will remain as 10 throughout the month. Okay, and whatever in and outs of the raw material has been done, it will be taken at the price of 10 only, irrespective of the fact that the prices must have changed by the supplier. You have taken it as 10, it will remain as 10 constant throughout the month, and at the end of the month, the variances will be calculated. Okay, so that means no differences in the price, but if there is a difference, then where it will go? If a difference comes between the goods receipt level and invoice receipt level, where it will go? Because I said that the price is constant. So therefore, we use the price difference key, that it will go to the price differentiation account if at all there is a difference uh, between the price at which it was received and the what it was invoiced. Okay, so that is our raw material standard. But it doesn't goes to, we do not classify the PRD key for raw material moving average class. Why? Because the moving average price goes on changing. So the change in prices is already accounted for. So any change in prices will not go to price difference. It will directly affect the raw material price in itself, because it is always changing. Okay, so you will always keep raw material standard within the price difference. You will not take raw material moving average into consideration over here, and we'll click on save. Okay, so this is done. Now what next? Now just think that there is also freight. Okay, there is also freight. Now freight might also come into picture, because when the goods are delivered, when the goods are received, there might be a factor of freight. Someone will take the freight charges. Okay, so where is that freight charges? That also need to be taken into consideration. Okay, so for that, what you will do, you will just check that whatever is the uh, freight provisions. Now this is one, freight provisions. Okay, this is what you need to consider. So if it is a provision, then you need to also create a GL of provisions, and provisions is basically, this is a liability. It is not an expense. Okay, so we need to create a GL for expense as well. Then only for liability as well. Then only we will be able to, basically, we will be able to do it under OBYC settings, and we will assign GLs to it. So still, we do not have a GL for freight. So what we will do, we will create one GL in FS00 for freight provisions. Freight is a liability. Okay. So I will go into current liabilities, and let me take GRIR clearing into consideration, and let me copy this GL, and I will assign one more GL, 100505, and this is for freight provisions. Okay, provisions is a liability, and we will just charge it for freight provisions. Okay, and I will go to control data. Once I go to control data, it's INR, it's fine. Okay, and let me go down. Oh, it's open item management. So always remember, it's an open item management. Okay, sort key will not be purchase order. You can place the sort key as 001 for provisions. It's the posting date. Okay, it's loading. It is the posting date, and then we will go to create bank interest, and herein you will select the field group G001, and always select post automatically because it is an integration. Okay, and just save this. So here the data is saved. Fine. Okay, so we have done this as well. Now what next? Now the OBYC settings have been completed. We do not know the configuration part basically is being completed. Now in the